Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced that L.K Advani will be conferred with a Bharat Ratna. That's India's highest civilian honor. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. In this decision, many political pundits are saying that Narendra Modi has pulled yet another ace out of his proverbial black hat. The Prime Minister took to social media to share the decision with the country. Advani, in many ways, seen as the architect, the original architect of the Ram Mandir movement, to receive this highest honor literally just days after the Ayodhya Ram Mandir has been inaugurated. The political implications of this are many. Interestingly, as all political watchers know, the relationship between the Prime Minister and L.K. Advani can at best be described as complicated. Many critics of the BJP argued that Advani had been sidelined, that in fact Advani had effectively been retired with his elevation to what has often been called the party's Margdarshak Mandal. But now, as author Vinay Sitapati, the author of Jugalbandi, the BJP before Modi, writes in the Indian Express, these comments are coming from people who don't understand the BJP, or what he says in his column is the Hindutva Fevicol. Joining us now to make sense of this decision, its politics, its messaging, is Vinay Sitapati himself. As I said, a very interesting column in the Indian Express, but also the author of the definitive book on the BJP before Modi, because let's be clear, there are two BJPs, the one before and the one after and during Modi, is Vinay himself. And there's a copy of him with his book. Thank you very much, Vinay, for joining us. Let me start by actually referring you to what you've written in the Indian Express moments after this decision was announced. You said this decision of the Bharat Ratna actually is evidence of why the BJP wins. So walk us through this. What do you see here? You use a very interesting phrase in your writing called Hindutva Fevicol. Talk a little bit more.
Well, thanks, Barkha. I think the first headline point that all your viewers know is that Vajpayee and Advani fought over whether Modi should resign in 2002, right after the Gujarat riots. Advani supported Modi, but some years later, just before the 2014 elections, Advani actually resigned from primary positions in the BJP because he opposed Narendra Modi being named as the prime ministerial candidate or the head of the leader of the BJP for the 2014 elections. They don't like each other. A few years later, in 2015, once the new Narendra Modi government had lost in Delhi and the state of Bihar, once again, Advani criticized the new leadership of the BJP. They do not get along. That's the headline. Yet, Narendra Modi has done this. He's conferred a Bharat Ratna. Can you imagine this happening in any other political party? Can you imagine Sonia Gandhi's Congress giving Bharat Ratna to Narasimha Rao? Can you imagine any other party where you have, two stalwarts, there's a falling out? This is the usual story. It doesn't happen in any other party. It happens in BJP, where leaders publicly stand up for each other despite not agreeing with each other because of something I call Hindutva Fevicol. Everyone in the RSS from a very early age are taught a certain version of Hindu history. May not be historically accurate, but it's their version. And that version is that invaders constantly come to India because Hindus at key moments are unwilling to stand together to fight against the invader, right? So again and again, plenty of history lessons from Jaichand to what happened in the Battle of Panipat is invoked by the RSS to their own. So anyone who's from the RSS understands this, that you should not repeat the mistakes that the Hindus have done before. Do not put your personal ego over the organization. Advani has inculcated it. He agreed to step down and give the prime ministerial position to Vajpayee in 1995 as the 1996 elections was approaching. And Narendra Modi has shown that today. It's putting the organization above your personal interest and ego. It is what is Hindutva Fevicol. It's why the BJP wins.
So let's talk a little bit about your basic argument is it's quite clear to anyone who's observed the party that these are two men whom Facebook would probably say about their relationship, it's complicated. In fact, you go one step further and you say, look, There's no love lost between the two. But this idea of this Hindutva Fevicol, putting the organization before self, it isn't as if sniping and backstabbing and palace intrigue doesn't take place in the BJP. It certainly used to before Modi, in a sense, created this sense of complete domination. I mean, I remember being a reporter covering the BJP earlier, and there were constantly camps. There was the Jaitley camp, there was the Sushma camp, there was the Pramod Mahajan camp, there was the Vajpayee camp, there was the Advani camp, right? So it's not as if these divisions don't exist within the BJP as they do within any other organization. But your argument is the public face that they will put out will be very different, and that's where the Hindutva Fevicol comes in. So go ahead and respond. It's not as if the sniping doesn't go on privately.
And frankly, this argument, I am the first person to say it, but frankly, it's obvious to anyone. Look at the words Sangh and Parivar. It tells you all you want to know about them. It's about organization and it's about family. And look at the typical Indian family, heavy infighting. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law are fighting with each other. Daughter-in-law is fighting. Husband is fighting with wife. But ultimately, at least the kind of narrative goes, for the outside world, it's one large happy family, right? The BJP believes this deeply. It is a family structure. You look again and again at those from the RSS background who leave the BJP. They feel like they've undergone a divorce, right? And they want to come back, like Jagdish Shettar has recently done, right? This doesn't happen with the Congress. It doesn't happen with any other party. And frankly, it should. If the India Alliance can learn one thing from today's events, it is that do not put your individual self-interest over group unity. If only the India Alliance focuses on unity, on group unity, the results in 2024, in a few months from now, could be slightly different from what all the pundits are saying. That's the core for how the BJP wins. And by the way, my book was about Vajpayee and Advani. It's not that in that 60-year relationship, they got along all the time. You knew that, Barkha. You were a veteran reporter during that period, and you knew there was an Advani camp, there was a Vajpayee camp, right? But ultimately, there was no divorce, right? And ultimately, an orderly succession had been set up that had the 2004 elections gone the BJP's way, in a year's time, Vajpayee would have stepped down and Advani would have become prime minister. That didn't happen. But this is the key reason, the Hindutva Fevicol, and that Fevicol comes from a certain reading of history. Now, just to be clear to your viewers, Barkha, I don't endorse that history. I think there are some issues with the history. It's a selective history, but nonetheless, it translates into a very powerful organizational ethic, which is disunity is the core reason for Hindu weakness. Do not replay the mistakes of your past Hindus.
Now, you liken in your writings this to a similar situation in the Congress, and you say that the opposite example is what happened between the Gandhi family and, let's say, Narasimha Rao. The story that has come to haunt the Congress is what happened after Narasimha Rao dies, how even till today it is pointed out that the Congress did not honor Rao as he should have been honored. And you contrast this with, in a way, what Modi has done with the Bharat Ratna to L.K. Advani.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Narasimha Rao was a man with his flaws. And, even though I'm Narasimha Rao's biographer, I'm no means a total fan of his. He went out of the way to sideline the Nehru Gandhi family when he was prime minister. So he gave as good as he got. He was even spying on Sonia Gandhi. My book pointed out how he sent the intelligence bureau to spy on 10 Janpads. So, there was no innocent in that fight. But the point being that once power came to Sonia Gandhi, once power of the Congress party came back to the Nehru Gandhi family, they treated Narasimha Rao badly. They needn't have. He was completely powerless. They could have superficially put his name on the website, put his photograph inside 24 Akbar Road, given him some superficial respect. Nothing. The story that the Congress has is this is the man who did Babri Masjid. Rahul Gandhi has even said, had a member of the Nehru Gandhi family been prime minister, then Babri Masjid wouldn't have fallen. Right? He even said that. Now, and when it comes to liberalization, the Congress view has been Rajiv Gandhi's idea, Manmohan Singh's implementation. There's no Narasimha Rao. It's like one of those Stalin photographs where leaders are airbrushed from history when inconvenient. For all the BJP's many flaws, they do not airbrush their own from party history.
Yeah, I think that's a very, I would say I agree, and that's a very important point. But just to be contrarian, there was a time when the Congress was unified by an unhealthy quote unquote high command culture. So what the Gandhis decided is what happened. Of late, you've seen that even in Ashok Gehlot has had the temerity to be offered president of the Congress and decline. You have seen people willing to carve their own paths, and the Gandhis no longer have that convening authority. In fact, some would argue that it is today the BJP that is the party with the sort of unitary force at its center in the form of Narendra Modi. And indeed, if you had to write a second book or a sequel to Jugalbandi, the Jugalbandi might well be that of Narendra Modi and Amit Shah, though not as equals in the way that Vajpayee and Advani were. So do you believe that to that extent, the BJP has got somewhat Congressified, and the Congress is a bit, I'm not saying the Congress has become like the BJP, but the Congress is a bit sort of diffused because its failure to keep power is leading to an erosion of its high command culture?
That's a very interesting point, Barkha. The way I would see it, while the BJP has Hindutva Fevicol, the Congress has power Fevicol, which means that when the Nehru Gandhis have power with them, the rest of the party fall in line. When Narasimha Rao had power with him, the rest of the party also fell in line. There's no principle or ideology here. It's just sticking together for the sake of power. The opposite side of that coin, Barkha, is that when the Nehru Gandhis are not able to command that kind of vote share on its own, the congressmen flee like rats deserting a sinking ship. That doesn't happen with the BJP. You're absolutely right that today, why should anybody leave the BJP? It's in the helm. It has power for itself. But look at the history of the BJP in the 50s, 60s, 70s. The Jansangh was a non-entity, and yet very, very rarely, okay, ML Sondhi left, then he comes back, just like Jagdish Shettar left, comes back. You have a few instances, famously Shankar Singh Waghela in 1995, where, like a good congressman, he takes a splinter group of MLAs to Khajuraho. You remember that well. That's Congress behavior. So it's true that power unites parties. The question of organization is what happens when you don't have power, which is what the Congress is going through right now. And we don't know there's in the future, but in the future, when power deserts the BJP, I would argue, if the argument of my book is true, that it's not power Fevicol, but still Hindutva Fevicol that sticks them together. I think that's the very big difference.
Now, let's come back, therefore, to the messaging here. You made the point about larger unity, that disunity among Hindus is what has always hurt, in a sense, the ideological interests of the larger Sangh Parivar and so on. But there is some sort of statement here, because the timing of it is coming one after the announcement of a Bharat Ratna for Karpuri Thakur, which is very interesting. Swapan Das Gupta on our podcast the other day was saying the BJP is now an OBC party. It's no longer a Brahmin Banya party. It's now an OBC party, and Bharat Ratna is announced for Karpuri Thakur. A few days after the Mandir moment, the Bharat Ratna is announced for L.K. Advani. How is the BJP, in your mind, positioning itself? If you were to look at the story of these two, let's say, Bharat Ratnas, what do they tell you from Karpuri Thakur to L.K. Advani?
That's an absolutely great question. And let me take your viewers to August 1990, right? The Mandal Commission is announced. The person who kind of, not the face of the Mandal Commission, but let's say the North Indian originator of the Mandal idea in North India was Karpuri Thakur, right? And Advani is in a bind. He's the head of the BJP at that time. He doesn't know how to react to Mandal because the poor upper castes, especially in urban North India, who are the core vote bank of the BJP, are furious. They are burning themselves. They are throwing stones at BJP leaders saying, support us. But Advani understands very clearly that if he was to oppose the Mandal Commission, the BJP would be reduced to being a North Indian upper caste party. And it's to credit to him in 1990 itself that he sees the tide of history, he sees the power of OBCs, and he supports the Mandal movement. Many people forget this, that BJP under Advani supported the Mandal Commission, though they said we wanted quota for poor upper caste. The Congress under Rajiv Gandhi actually opposed the Mandal Commission. Many people forget this, right? So this idea of Mandal being supported by LK Advani in 1990, there's a straight line between that and Bharat Ratna for Karpuri Thakur a few days ago, right? And the second straight line, Barkha, is a few months after the acceptance of the Mandal Commission report, when Advani decides to go on a Rath Yatra. So his idea is, let's accept Mandal, but let's change the conversation to Mandir, right? And that's what you see today. Just a few days after, the parallel is exact. Just after Mandal, the BJP is honoring Mandir, right?
Yeah.
Let me add to your viewers, Barkha, a third M, which is market. A few
Yeah.
months, some months after the Rath Yatra, Narasimha Rao begins his liberalization. The BJP under actually Vajpayee opposes it internally. I point that out in my book. Advani, again, foresight to him, supports liberalization. He supports the third M, market. And I would say all these decades later, Narendra Modi has understood the power of Mandal and Mandir. I hope he also symbolically accepts market by giving a Bharat Ratna to Narasimha Rao. That would be the culmination of those tumultuous months in 1990 and 91.
Now, finally, Vinay, to understand a little bit more the ideological positioning of how we look back at Advani, and you are very well placed to look at this because you actually wrote about Vajpayee and Advani as a pair, the Jugalbandi. Now, in the days when we were younger, and Vajpayee was the prime minister, L.K Advani was his deputy, the party liked to present them in a good cop, not bad cop manner exactly, but hard line, soft line manner, the low purush, and then the consensus builder. But towards the end of his career, Advani tried to morph into a Vajpayee-esque figure. He goes to Pakistan, he praises Jinnah, his party recoils from that. He goes from being the politician who protected Modi against Vajpayee's intervention to being the person who doesn't want the rise of Modi to central power, right? How do we remember Advani ideologically? How do we look back at Advani as an ideologue?
That's a very interesting question, Barkha. And what I point out in my book is, contrary to the popular perception that Vajpayee was this kind of modern liberal face and Advani was like, a traditional hardliner, their social origins are actually the opposite. That Vajpayee comes from a very traditional conservative background from the Gangetic Plains. Advani spoke English before he knew Hindi, right? A few minutes ago on your screen, you put the fact that in the 1940s he joins the RSS. I point out
Yeah.
in my book a very interesting story that he joined the RSS when he was playing a tennis match. And midway through the tennis match, his partner says, "Listen, I got to go to a shakha." And Advani says, "What is this shakha?" And thus joining the RSS, being the only person, I think, from his background who joins the RSS after a tennis match. That's the very sign of being a Macaulay Putra. If it hadn't been for the catastrophe of partition, which completely destroyed the family wealth of Advani, he came from a rich family in Karachi, he would not have joined the RSS. I mean, he would not have joined Hindu nationalism. That's what he's a trauma victim of partition, which is why an English-speaking Macaulay Putra became, a Sangh hardliner. But his instincts, yes, he was a cadre man. He understood the cadre. But, his private life, his understanding of his self is a quote-unquote English-speaking liberal, right? And Vajpayee, in some sense, is the opposite. So I would say that, yes, people remember him for the Rath Yatra. I would remember him for Mandal Mandir Market, for those months in 1990 and 1991, when as BJP leader, he understood the tide of history. And today, the BJP structure is very much Mandal market. Narendra Modi defines that. But I would say at the end of the day, he was a party man. He has put the party above himself. I think that's how he would like to be remembered the most. And I think that is an accurate description.
So finally, Vinay, when you make this very interesting portrait of Advani as the sort of anglicized Macaulay Putra, Vajpayee actually, later became the more the sort of the less conservative, more urbane favorite. But you're actually in a way suggesting, and I say this strictly in a lighter vein, that L.K. Advani may have been more the Khan market milieu than Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Khan market is a metaphor.
Yeah. Advani liked shopping in Bari Sons. Like, how can you be more Khan market? Vajpayee had no think for that. He just didn't understand that world. And you mentioned Swapam Das Gupta. He was on your podcast earlier. He was an
Yeah.
English-speaking Putra, and he was brought to the party by Advani, not Vajpayee. Vajpayee didn't like him. Vajpayee was suspicious of English-speaking intellectuals with PhDs. They were not his milieu. They were very much Advani's milieu, right? People forget that as information and broadcasting minister, soon after the emergency, Advani makes a good name for himself among the media by being very pro press freedom. Those were his instincts. But however, he had this other side to him that came after partition. He was a partition victim. He was furious at the kind of politics that had led to it. And he was a disciplined soldier of the movement. So there are these two sides to Advani, but I would say ultimately history will remember him as refusing to become prime minister, as putting the party over self. Look, there are no shortage of problems with him. He was not a very good administrator when it came to governance. He was a good party man. He wasn't a good home minister. He resented not being made deputy prime minister earlier. And he was, unlike Vajpayee, he played with fire when it came to the Ayodhya movement. As
Yeah.
Vajpayee himself said, when you ride a tiger, one day the tiger will swallow you, right? So here, I mean, he has no shortage of mistakes in my eyes, but I would certainly put him very high in a, if I may say, very unlike Indian politicians. He did not put his ego above party interests.
But do you see an ideological statement that links to, there is commentary today that this is the sort of culmination, this is the final chapter, as it were, of the entire Hindutva project when it comes to the mandir. Do you see an ideological statement there? Do you see this as a culmination of the mandir movement? Is that what this is about?
Well, not a culmination, but I see it as an important milestone, right? Just like
Mhm.
I don't think Karpuri Thakur getting Bharat Ratna is not the culmination of the Mandal movement, because the Mandal movement, has now become part and parcel of the BJP. BJP is an OBC party, especially an EBC party, right? So
Yeah.
it's another signpost, but the politics of Mandir is hardly done, right? Now, as your viewers know, there's talk about Kashi and Mathura, so there's continuation on this, but certainly it's a milestone to thank all those who are part of the movement, right? I only wish, maybe I'm biased because I like Narasimha Rao and I like liberalization, that there's a third Bharat Ratna waiting for the third M, which is a market. I only wish that Prime Minister Manmohan Singh had done it. After all, for Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, Narasimha Rao was his own political guru. That's what he told me. I wish it had happened during his time. I think the time has come to correct that mistake and give Bharat Ratna now to Narasimha Rao, completing the three M's that have redefined India today.
Well, knowing Modi, that's entirely possible because Pranab Mukherjee was among those veteran congressmen who was conferred with the Bharat Ratna. And again, Modi would be making a big political point to the Congress.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But
So,
I think the real lesson here is for the India Alliance, Barkha.
yeah,
Look at the way they have been behaving here. Look at the way Nitish Kumar and Advani would never behave like that. And look, Modi has lots of reasons to dislike Advani. Like, lots of reasons. He had lots of reasons to be suspicious of Vajpayee, but he proved to be bigger than his slights. And similarly, in
mhm.
Vajpayee and Advani's 60-year relationship, they prove bigger than their personal slights. I think that's the lesson for Nitish Kumar. That's the lesson for Mamta Banerjee. And that's the lesson for the Congress party.
Your book and your article in the Indian Express chronicles a meeting with L.K. Advani where he had just finished. He had read your biography of Narasimha Rao. The one thing that I remember well about Advani is he liked not just that he liked buying books at Bahari Sons and Khan Market, but he liked a good argument. I remember as a young reporter getting a phone call from him and saying, "आपने जो लिखा हम उससे बिल्कुल सहमत नहीं है. घर आइए चाय पे डिस्कस करेंगे." So this BJP before Modi. Was quite fond of dialectics, of argument, of
Yeah,
debate.
yeah, no, absolutely. So, I'll give you another example, Barkha, that the Vajpayee cabinet, there was actually disagreement, right?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
say on a key issue like disinvestment, Ram Nayak and George Fernandez on one side and Arun Shourie on the other side disagreed. Ultimately, Vajpayee chose to go with Arun Shourie, but there was heavy disagreement, right? I mean, Advani and Vajpayee disagreed heavily, right? But ultimately, they were able to conduct 5 years of government. There was no kind of very squalid, open fighting, even though as a reporter at the time, you remember all the inside stories. So I think that's a strength. It's the strength of the BJP. It's the strength of Hindu nationalism, at least during the period that I write. I think that is what Hindutva Fevicol is all about.
What does it mean for the ideological space it leaves for the others. One of the things that the opposition to the BJP is grappling with is no ideological coherence, right? So their only binding ideology right now is we oppose Modi. But they can't quite say, oh, we're secular because Shiv Sena and the Congress are together, right? Nitish Kumar has floated ideologically between two sides now so often that you've lost count. If this is the Hindutva Fevicol, as you so memorably call it, what is the Fevicol that can bind the other side, which is not just opposition, as it were, to Modi? What is the ideological
Well,
space left?
Well, Barkha, look, I'm a, as a political historian, I'm very good at predicting the past, less good at predicting the future. But I'd like to kind of draw your viewers' attention to the Janata Party, right? Very similar to what the opposition today is trying. The Janata Party of the 1970s had very little in common with each other. They were the socialists, they were the communists, they were the kind of the backward caste leaders, and there was the BJP, for crying out loud, right? Why did they come together? Because they didn't come together because of any common ideology. The JP movement doesn't have a common ideology at all. What common ideology can link the left with the with the Jan Sangh at the time? They came together because they were terrified of Indira Gandhi. They felt Indira Gandhi had become authoritarian, and they felt that for their own short-term survival, they have to put their interests separate interests apart and come together. That's what they did. And they found that there's enough of a vote share, even outside the Indira Gandhi devotees, who could come together and give Janata Party a win in 1977. So I don't think the opposition should waste time right now in coming up with a coherent ideology that will evolve. Right now, their focus should be that there are 62% of Indians who don't vote for Modi, and how can you get them together, at least in the short term? And instead of, I'm not asking them to do something as exalted as coming up with a clear ideological opposition to Modi. I'm only saying put your short-term self-interest apart. I'm requesting, Mamata Banerjee, Nitish Kumar, you name it, right? To say, okay, whatever our differences for this national election in 2024, we will try to behave ourselves. Afterwards, we'll start infighting. They haven't even done that. So I think that, if you are a critic of Narendra Modi, if you wanted the BJP to lose, what you would say right now is forget about a common ideology. Let's at least begin with a common organization. That's what the Jan Sangh was able to do in 1977. And I think that is the short-term recipe, and they're absolutely failing at that.
But your central argument about this sort of organization above individual, does that apply in an age where the politician that Prime Minister Modi has been most compared to is Indira Gandhi, a sort of highly centralized control over the party where the man is the message. Even Mallikarjun Kharge famously joked in Parliament yesterday that ye jo aap log sab baithe hain, aap bolte ho 400 par is baar, and it's all because of Modi. None of you could win on your own. This is the key opposition leader saying to the Prime Minister as he's laughing that it's all because of Modi. Modi has virtually become the message. The man has become bigger, I might even argue, than the RSS. So does your central idea of the organization being larger than the individual still apply in the Modi age?
Absolutely, Barkha. Look, there are clear similarities between Indira Gandhi and Narendra Modi, not just as style of functioning, but in terms of the almost mesmeric hold they have over the voter, right? There is similarity. There's one big difference that Indira Gandhi's power and charisma came at the cost of the party. I mean, she split the party, she broke the party, right? And literally from Congress, it eventually became Congress I, Congress Indira, right? The BJP hasn't split to BJP M, right? It's still BJP. Modi has not split the party. Yes, he's sidelined people like Murli Manohar Joshi and Advani, but let's be honest about it. They aren't able to get votes today. Narendra Modi is able to get votes today, right? That's the reality of it. RSS is still strong. I would certainly say that relations between the RSS and Modi's BJP is much better than it was between Vajpayee's BJP and the RSS under Sudarshan, right? So within the Sangh Parivar, there's actually harmony. I mean, Modi has not destroyed the BJP the way Indira Gandhi destroyed the Congress, or frankly, Trump has destroyed the Republican Party. In fact, I would go so far as to argue that whatever his personality and style of functioning, Modi's ideology is not Moditva, it is Hindutva. All that he has delivered is a 75-year project of Hindu nationalism. He is a soldier of Hindu nationalism. He is not a soldier of Narendra Modi. And that's a very big difference between him and Indira Gandhi. After Indira Gandhi, the Congress collapse began. I don't think after Narendra Modi, the BJP collapse will begin. You're absolutely right that Narendra Modi is much more popular than the BJP, but it's not at the cost of the BJP or RSS organization.
Well, I think that's where we'll end. Modi's ideology is Hindutva, remains Hindutva, not a Moditva. Indira Gandhi split the party. The Congress after Indira has struggled to find, in a way, that kind of, highly individualized popular leadership. Rajiv Gandhi did win, but that was on the back of a sympathy wave, and then his life was cut too short. And since then, of course, that moment has not come for the Congress party. Vinay Sitapati, the author of Jugalbandi, the BJP before Modi, it has been fascinating talking to you. Hindutva Fevicol is the phrase, I think, of the day to describe the conferring of the Bharat Ratna by Narendra Modi's government on LK Advani. We look forward to talking to you in person on our podcast later. Thank you for talking to us, and take care.
Thank you, Barkha.
Thank you.
Mojo's Story has always made a commitment to its viewers to go to where the story is. And as you can see here, we are at the epicenter of the Israel war on Gaza. We are right at the front line, about 1 mile from the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli military gets ready with its tanks and its gunners to begin its final frontal assault that will take troops into Gaza. As we said, we are not like other organizations. We believe in giving you all sides of the story objectively and as much as possible from the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here, covering the biggest global story today from the epicenter of the war zone. So please, we need your support. Support us, become a Mojo member, subscribe to us, spread the word, and thank you for your support.